Hi, welcome to the Process Development Center here at Promess Incorporated, located in Brighton, Michigan. My name is Ed Stockline. I'm a sales and application engineer here at Promess Incorporated. This is Scott Laske, also an application engineer. How long have you been at Promess?
So I've been at Promess for 15 years now. The first 5 years or so I started in our final assembly department, setting up systems and building them, and the last 8 years I've been in our engineering department.
And I've also been at Promess for about 8 years now. So let's get into why we're here today. Today's installment is the 5th in our educational webinar series. Today's title is From Prototype to Production, Process Development with Promess. So why are we here? One of the main things that we wanted to talk about was in today's manufacturing world, we have access to a lot of prototype equipment or prototyping equipment for product development. One of the main issues that we see, since we kind of span both the production and the development world, is a lot of development is created in the lab with prototype or development equipment. And then when it gets out on the floor, you have a whole nother set of equipment that you have to adjust to. So part of why we've created the Process Development Center here at Promess is to kind of help bridge that gap and use some accurate production equipment to actually create the product development side of it, and allows you to have a lot less risk when you are developing your products. So what are we going to talk about today? The Process Development Center overview. We're going to give a little intro to what the Process Development Center is, some of the equipment that we have available here, and then we're going to talk about 4 points to having successful process development and how that relates to the lab that we have here at Promess. Just a little housekeeping. We do have a Q&A that is live right now. So if you have any questions during the presentation, we will answer those questions at the end of the presentation. So Scott, what kind of equipment can people expect to find here in the Process Development Center, and what kind of development can we do?
So in our process development lab here behind me, we have 3 main workstations that we typically do a lot of our part testing on. We have a size 1 system down here in the end that can do force capabilities up to 2,700 pounds, a size 2 that goes to 9,000, and a size 3 which does up to 26,000 pounds. So a lot of the testing that we do is typically run on one of these 3 systems, just depending on the force requirements. But we do also offer a wide range of presses. Basically any press that we offer or sell, we can use in our lab here for testing. So anything down from a couple hundred pounds of force up to over 100,000 pounds of force, we have the equipment set up to where we can run any customer parts or applications they want to test or develop here. We do also offer a torque systems as well. So we have torque workstations, and also another system called the Remap, which does rotational and linear force. It's a 2-axis system. And so depending on the application and the requirements for testing your parts, we pretty much have the capability to do the majority of applications out there, or at least test them here at our lab.
Cool. So let's get into the 4 main points to have a successful process development here at Promess. So the first point we want to make was we have a proven process for this. So typically when I'm out on the road, I'm going to meet with customers at their facility, talk about their application, their product, what challenges they face, and if it's a potential product that can be tested here, we'll typically have you set up, ship your parts here, and then what do we do once we get the parts at Promess?
So typically I'd like to have a conversation with the customer to get their expectations from the test. So what is the critical criteria for assembling their parts? Is it just a matter of pressing it together, defining out the force requirements, or is there pass-fail criteria when assembling? Is it a crimping application, bending, straightening, whatever it may be, just to get the specs, specifications, and the details on what they expect during the assembly process. And then also I'd like to discuss any tooling requirements. So if there is any specialized tooling that is required for their parts, fixturing or nests to hold the part in place securely, we'd like to be able to have that there so we can most accurately simulate what their process is going to be out in the field. once they get done with the development. We do have a wide range of plates and blocks and other sets of toolings that we've collected over the years. So lots of times, if it's just as simple as enough of needing a couple flat plates to come down and press on a part, or something a little slightly different, we have a lot of stuff here that we can use to set up and run the parts with. And then once we receive the parts in, I'll begin to set up the press or set up the tooling and whatever underneath one of our press workstations, and then I'll begin creating a program. So this program will be customized towards whatever requirements the customer needs. So whatever data they're looking to get from the test, if there's cycle time requirements, I'll set up the programs to execute in the allotted time I'm given to assemble their parts, and whatever other criteria they want in the program and data-wise, I will integrate all that into the program as I'm creating it. So then we'll start running some of the parts. I'll try to run an adequate number of parts to get a good feel on the data that's being collected. And then we'll compile all the data, any graphs from the data, and then take pictures or videos of the tests and send that to the customer. So then I'd like to set up a call with the customer to just get their feedback and feel on how the testing's going so far. If there's anything that I'm not doing correctly, or if there's anything they want me to try differently when assembling the test. So just to get a good idea before I run all their parts is just to run a good sample size, just to get a good feel with the customer on how the testing's going. So then once we just have another call or email with the customer to discuss the results. I can then run the remainder of the parts, and lots of times we'll do things like trying to do error proofing. So, if I put the part in crooked and press it in, can the press detect that it was a bad part? Or if I put the part in upside down, or if I assemble it incorrectly, being able to prove that our systems are capable of detecting any errors like that they might see out in the field to prevent something like that from getting into their end result or end system.
Cool. Yeah, so that kind of entails the proven process, and we've had a lot of success over the years with our customers on doing the same exact process that Scott just described, being able to check whether or not tooling needs to be changed. We've run into a lot of things like that where the tooling's designed and we actually fix the design problems here by letting them know that it's obviously not working, which saves you some time on the back end. You don't want to be fixing your tooling a few days before your production is supposed to be running. So the next point to success is it's less of a point and more of a question. So is our product the right tool for the job? So sometimes with certain applications, no matter how good the tooling is or how great the product is, there just might not be a way to do the application the way that it needs to be done. Our presses and other units are really capable of crazy movement algorithms and detailed monitoring strategies, but if for some reason the tooling just doesn't mesh up properly with the part, or there's something wrong with the initial design of the part, we might not be able to do it. And one of the things we don't try to do is oversell our product. If we don't feel comfortable about the application, we're not going to try and hard sell you on it. The next point, lowering integration costs. So this is kind of going back to what Scott had mentioned earlier about the programming. So Scott is going to create a template program that is a basic outline of what that program could actually be in production. And if you're working with a machine builder, you're going to, they're going to have a lot less to do because the program's already built. Maybe some handshaking or some PLC integrations required. But if you were to build one of your own stations or buy a workstation from us, basically that program's already done.
It's already there and ready to go. So it saves time on the floor setting that up. And you already know you have a proven process with the program to collect the data and assemble the parts accordingly.
Yeah, and you guys aren't the experts in Promess programming either, so having a program that's set up by one of our application engineers here, you know that we're going to use the best practices for how that program should be set up and how it should communicate with other systems. The last one that I had was determining the right size product for your application. So what that means, it's a little bit different than the right tool for your job in one instance where if you oversize the press, a lot of times our customers will come from the hydraulic world in terms of technology, and they'll come to us and say, hey, can I get a quote for a 50-ton press? A 50-ton press in the servo electric world is considerably more expensive than a 50-ton press in the hydraulic world. So what we try and do, and one of the main goals of this process development center, is to figure out the right size press. How many times have you heard of a customer that either over or undersized their press?
Yeah, it's typically over that. It is very common for them to come in and say this part should take 20,000 pounds to assemble. They give it to us, and lots of times it's half. It could be 5,000 to actually assemble them. Maybe that's what they're applying in the field currently, and they're just overpressing their parts. So by being able to accurately size a system accordingly, you're not going to put that extra stress, and it's going to lower integration costs by not needing a system with as high force capabilities.
Right. Yeah. So you could be talking about a difference between, say, 40,000 pounds that you don't need. And if you are running a high volume production scenario, you don't necessarily need all that force anyways, because you're never going to reach those forces in production. If you're using the workstation for development purposes, you might want a little bit higher force, but we also have some accessories that can help with a wide range of forces. So say you have some parts that are really small and take a really light load, and some parts that are really big and take a really heavy load. You can actually add an external load cell to the bottom of our press ram to be able to measure those smaller parts, but then you have the load cell that's installed inside of the press to be able to handle a larger force of those products. So just to recap those 4 main points that I talked about, the proven process, being able to go from prototype to production using the information that we gather here. Is our product the right tool for the job? So making sure that the application is even possible. You don't want to put your neck out on the line for a product or a process that isn't going to be feasible in production. We can find that out here. Lowering integration costs, so having that programming template is going to save time and money on the back end when the machine's getting installed, but also doing some of that error checking, being able to tell if an O-ring's crushed the wrong way, or if the part's in upside down. Testing different operator load failures and things like that are really going to save a lot of time on the back end as well. And then the final one, determining the right size product for your application. Like we just talked about, you can save a lot of money by not oversizing your press. You can save a ton of money by not having to buy a second press if you undersize it. So those are kind of the main points and the main goals of the Process Development Center here at Promess.
So I just want to touch on a few things you mentioned too. It's, lots of times the main reason you're sending us parts is, it could be as simple as just finding the force requirements, as Ed said, but also it's, the force, what it takes to assemble the part, but it's being able to detect errors and bad parts basically. So they'll not only send us parts and they know they can assemble them, and that's not the hard part, but being able to detect the failed scenarios. Did someone forget to put an O-ring in the part when it's assembled? Can we detect missing O-rings? So we do a lot of that error proofing out here to where we'll prove to you ahead of time before you ever purchase anything from us that not only can we assemble it, but we can catch any fail scenarios that's currently causing you headaches. Or potentially if it's a high scrap rate. If customers are scrapping 10, 20% of the parts they assemble because they're just smashing them together with hydraulic press and they don't have any smart technology, they don't have any feel when they're assembling them. So that's why going with one of our systems and sending your parts into the PDC, we can show you the capabilities of the system and what we're able to do and detect when assembling your parts.
Cool. All right. So just to kind of wrap things up before we get into the Q&A, I do challenge any new customers that haven't used the Process Development Center before to call us up or visit us on the web. 810-229-9334 is our phone number, or you can visit us at promessinc.com. Call us, talk to us about your application. We can certainly help with anything from that initial stage of prototyping all the way through to production. So let's get into the Q&A here. Looks like we have some questions. Scott, how much does it cost to use your lab?
It is free, 100% free. So yeah, we charge there's no charging or purchase requirements to use our lab. it's basically you send us your parts and any necessary tooling, and we'd be more than happy to run and assemble them and everything for you. So we encourage customers to use this just so that everything is done up front of time. So before you ever purchase the system, you're going to have a good feel that you're knowing you're getting the best system for your application.
And I will add to that this is process development and not necessarily part testing. So we're not going to do like 1,000 part run to make sure that you have certain requirements met for that 1,000 part run, but we will find out in the initial stages of your prototyping or product development that some glaring issues from either the design of the product or maybe the suppliers that you're using for the subcomponents, those are going to be the types of issues that we fix here. Do you build tooling for my parts?
That is yes and no. It's mainly Promess does not get into necessarily building or designing tooling. We have done a little bit of that. So it is typically a small, it all actually just depends really on the application and the testing itself. So we don't necessarily do everything, smaller things and smaller designs, especially when you purchase a workstation. We can potentially work with your application and look at your tooling design, and it's something we might tackle or not.
Yeah. How quick is the turnaround on testing?
So typically, we have been rather busy lately with the PDC. We are getting a good amount of customer parts coming in, but normally if we know ahead of time what you're going to be sending and we discuss it, lots of times when you send the parts in, normally within 1 week, we can have them assembled and turn around, or if not that same day, just depending on the application and what it requires. If it's one of our standard press systems you see behind me, normally it can be done rather quickly. If it's something a little more special or customized, if I have time ahead of time to set up that testing and I'm ready when the parts come in, typically, 1 week, if not sooner, we can get everything turned around and done. Yeah. And it also too depends on if the customer, if you guys would like to come into the PDC. So we do welcome everyone if they're available or if you're close enough, or even if you want to fly in, is to come in and we can run and assemble the parts with you here in our lab, or you can just send the parts in and then I can give you, pictures and video feedback and send you out the data from the results of the test. Yep.
That's a good point to make too, especially around this time. We do also have the capability to do virtual process development. So having your team, on a laptop off to the side while we're building parts is not uncommon in these days. The other thing I guess I'll mention is we do have the use of air. We've had lots of customers bring in heated platens and things like that as well. So certainly we can accommodate really a wide range of products and different types of testing. Does the press work better with certain PLCs?
So we offer all the standard field bus options with our systems, so, DeviceNet or Profibus, Profinet, Ethernet IP. And then as far as PLCs, it's really any of the standard PLCs, Allen Bradley, Siemens. We've never had any issues working with any of those.
Do you sell full standalone systems like the one behind you at all? So the workstations?
So,
yeah. What you see behind us are actual standard products from Promess. So there's a couple different ways that you could buy a Promess press or a Promess system from us. You can buy it, have an integrator, build a machine for you, do all the PLC work, do all the tooling and everything for you. That's one way. Another way is you can buy the press system by itself and then add your own tooling, build your own machine if you have that capability at your facility. And then the third way, you could actually buy a standalone system like this workstation behind us. And then really all you have to do at that point is add your tooling and fixturing, use Scott's program, and you can be running parts basically the day you get it in the door. Can I come in and test them myself?
Yes, as we discussed, we're more than welcome. I know it's a little difficult with the situation we're in right now with COVID and everything, but we do encourage, if you guys are available and are able to come into our lab. So that way we really gives you a good sense of exactly what you're going to get. We can show you the program, how we created it, the press systems, any components and everything that go with it, just so you have a really good understanding of what we offer with our systems. And then we also can give you our tour. Our manufacturing center is just across the street. So we do like to give you a tour of our whole facility and just show you basically what everything that Promess is about.
And as an added bonus, if I know that you're going to have a good handle on the programming and everything, typically I like to actually do a little kind of mini training session as well here at the center. Just I'll actually have my customers build the program while I'm helping them kind of move through the menus and things like that, just getting them ready for the menus that they're going to be having to learn once it's on their floor. Do you provide privacy when testing from your other customers? So assuming it's talking about like blocking off.
So we do have a lot of NDA agreements, when we get in parts, and depending on the sensitivity of it, we have blocked off certain areas or certain walls of the PDC just to keep everything in private from anyone that could potentially in. And we also do like to only limit it to one customer in the PDC at a time. So we typically don't want, bunch of different customers all working on different stations. It's typically, if you're going to come in, we'll set it up so you'll be the only person here with us working in the lab at that time.
Is there a max number of parts I can test there? Yeah, that's a good question. Mentioned a little bit when we were talking about in the main part of the presentation. We do want to focus on the process development here, not necessarily just running and testing parts. We wouldn't typically do like you give us a purchase order to test 10,000 parts or do a small production run or anything like that. We're here to help you kind of take your product from that prototype stage through its development into production. And that's what we're really focused on, not necessarily the emphasis of doing the actual testing in a huge quantity or anything like that.
Also, too, on the other side of that, it's being able to send in enough parts so you get a good feel of the assembly and data. If you send us two parts and we assemble both of them and the forces vary on both parts, maybe you're not going to get a good feel of the range it actually takes. So sending in enough so you get a good sample size of data to analyze for assembling your parts. But again, it's we're not doing a part runoff, so sending in thousands of parts to assemble is really not feasible, I guess.
I would say for most customers, it's going to be anywhere from like 20 to 50 parts that we will typically do in a test scenario like that. Go ahead and skip that one because we already answered it. Can I be there when the development work is done? Yeah, that's we kind of touch on that a little bit. You can be here when the development work is done. Like I said, you can be here in person or virtually, whatever is more comfortable for you. Next question is, how far in advance do I need to schedule my testing with you?
There really is no time frame that you need. It's really whatever works best for you. If you give us your details on when you would like it done, and then we basically can respond if everything's open, we have time, or if the PDC is open and there's no one here, then yes, we can do it in that time. Just yesterday, I had a customer call me up at noon and they wanted to come in and run some parts. So they came in at 4 and we were able to run a couple parts for them. It was just a quick thing. So we have same day sometimes. So it just depends on who and when. But typically, if you just reach out to us, we'll let you know, whenever you're looking for if we're available or not.
Yeah. And to add to that, if you are developing tooling along with your product or your process, we all know that, sometimes you need to go back and remachine tooling or things like that. So it's not uncommon for us to have customers that come in multiple times over, say, a month period, 2 or 3 times a week while they're trying to kind of get their fixturing and their tooling exactly right.
So we are very flexible, and it's really, we just want to, whatever really can work best for you, we can try to accommodate that.
Do you have robotic systems for system development in the PDC? If so, what type?
No, we do have some systems here, but those are more for demos, and we don't typically get into those for the part testing. So that's not typically something Promess offers, is the robots or that for the development side of things.
Yeah. We do have the Probot though, which is kind of like it's not necessarily like a 6-axis robot like you would normally think. It's more of a part placement robot. It's only got 2 axes and it moves a platen around basically on a table, so we can actually press right on top of the table or the fixture that it's holding. Can you handle large parts with high forces? What do we go up to?
So we have systems currently right now, we have systems that can go up to 112,000 pounds. And yeah, so depending on large parts, so if your part's not going to fit in one of these workstations here, we do have a wide variety of stands and other things we can use. So that kind of goes back to, if we get an idea of what you need assembled, before you send us the parts, we can start working on getting that fixturing or tabling set up. So especially on the larger presses, which would be in the over 100,000 pounds, you know, the area, it's on a what we call an H-frame workstation. So you do have quite a large area underneath the system, and we do have our crane and high-lows and everything like that available for extremely heavy parts that we can move around. So it's not uncommon for, you know, we've done people send in whole engines before for us to do some sort of assembly or test on. So normally we can, but that's why we like to have the conversation with the customer ahead of time, just so we're aware and prepared for, you know, whatever they're going to be sending in.
Do you do data collection and back-end development as well? For example, sending gauging data or curve data to a PC or PLC?
No. So with all of our systems, that gauging and everything is just, it comes standard. So we can create force and position feedback and create signature force over position curves during the assembly. So anything, so that's when, you know, if we know the criteria for your testing, so if you just want to know the peak force and the position the press went to, or the insertion force, or the overall press depth, you know, all of these things are standard and easy enough for us to do and gauge in our software. So it's just a matter of figuring out what criteria you have for your test, and then we can set the program up to capture that data. And then as far as exporting, then all that data will be saved on a PC. So with all of our systems, they run on any Windows-based PC, our software. So all the data can be saved to the PC, and you could print it out to a CVS or an Excel file, or print the graphs out to a PDF file, and then we can send you the data, or you can save the data that way.
Yeah, and all the data that we collect here during the process development is actually sent to you. So that's kind of included in that, you know, free process development program that we offer. Can you guys provide 3D models of your machines so we can easily model our stations?
Yes, we can. So yep, we have CAD models and 3D models of all of our systems, workstations, presses, everything, basically every component we have. So that's pretty much standard. Once you guys are, even if you want to design tooling around one of our presses, we'll send you a CAD model of it so you can design your fixturing and everything for it at a time. So that's not an issue.
Do you have offline gauges to verify my assembly after you press it?
So we do have a lot of measuring capabilities here, so it just depends on if it's a special in fixturing or something needed for your part, then it would be something you would have to bring in. Just measuring heights and calipers and basic things like that, you know, we have all that kind of capability. So it just depends on the complexity of it and what your part requires.
Yeah, if you have a very specific gauge that needs to fit within a very specific diameter, certainly you'd probably have to provide something like that.
And also too, kind of along the same lines is, lots of times when we assemble or crimp a part, there's also the pass-fail criteria of not necessarily a gauge. It would be doing a push-out or a pull test or a destructive test to verify it was assembled correctly. So we do a lot of that as well. We'll not only assemble the part here, then we also can do the test to verify it was assembled correctly. You know, just whatever the destructive test may be.
It says, odd question. Does the press have to be vertical? If space or height is an issue, can the press work horizontally?
Yep, yeah, there's no issues with mounting our press in any direction, fit horizontal, upside down. It doesn't affect any capabilities of our system, so that's not a problem.
Do you only test press fits?
No, it's any kind of assembly. So like I was kind of saying, if it's a crimping or a bending or straightening application, coining, whatever it may be, we've kind of been involved in just about almost a very wide variety of assembly applications. So we've done most everything. So we have a lot of engineering experience with the engineers here that have been with Promess for over 20 years. So there's always, we've typically done whatever your application is, we've probably done it at some point in the past. So
yeah, or one very similar to it. Yeah, we've done composites, like I mentioned earlier. We've had heated platens in here that are helping to form certain materials. You know, we've done everything from medical to automotive to aerospace, even consumer products and things like that. So that's the end of the questions that we have here. Just wanted to mention again, if you do have an application or a product that you'd like to potentially use in the Process Development Center, or even just discuss the application with one of our expert application engineers, you can call us again at 810-229-9334 or visit us on our website at promessinc.com. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.